The reason most founders never achieve the goals they set at the beginning of each year is because they're not actually setting goals. They're setting wishes with deadlines. In other words, they know what they want, but their strategy for actually getting it is nowhere near as complete as they think it is. And this is why every year in January, it always feels exciting. And then by February, the effect is worn off. And by June, nothing's changed. And they feel like another year is slipping away all over again. Now, in my experience, this isn't a work ethic or a discipline problem. It's most often a strategy problem. And so in today's talk, I want to give you the exact system that I use for annual goal setting and strategy that I've been refining for over 15 years in business. It's helped me generate 8 figures in lifetime revenue and over 7 figures a year for nearly a decade. And I call this the TASK system. It's TASK with a C, which stands for target, actions, systems, and constraints. So your target is, of course, your big primary goal for the year. Your actions are the specific steps you need to take in order to hit that target. Your systems are repeatable habits that you do day after day, month after month that will inevitably lead you to hitting all of those action items. And then your constraints we'll talk about at the end. This is maybe the most mission critical piece of this formula with the founders that I work with, and almost nobody does these. So I'll walk you through this whole process step by step. By the end, my hope is that you'll have full clarity on your goals and your annual strategy for achieving them. You'll know exactly where you're going and exactly how to get there, and all you'll need to do is execute. And I've also put together a free AI tool for you at the link in the description that'll walk you through each step in this task formula, as well as a few bonus steps. It only takes about 30 minutes to use, and by the end of it, you'll have a complete annual strategy laid out for you. So again, that's at the link in the description if you want to check it out. So let's get started. The first step in this process is to set your target. This is your big goal for the year. Now, notice I didn't say goals, I said goal. My number one piece of advice for founders, if you take nothing else from this talk, is to set one goal. Now, the reason for this is what I most often see, especially with founders at the 6 and 7 figure level, is dilution of energy and attention. They're just focused on way too many fucking things. And that means that their resources are spread thin across a whole bunch of different tasks. If you think of a focused beam of light, in other words, a laser, if you concentrate that laser on a single point, it can cut through steel. As soon as you scatter that light, it can't even warm up a piece of paper. So your energy and attention and your resources work the exact same way. The fewer things you focus on, the more focus you have to achieve that single goal. So my question for you here is, what one goal, if you achieved it, would make your entire year feel like a success? Once you have that in mind, we want to stretch that goal slightly higher than you're initially comfortable with. And the reason for this is we don't want the goal to sit in our head like a mental concept. That's what a lot of people do. They just pull a goal out of thin air, and then it's just a thought in their head. There's no energy behind it. What we want to do is hit the sweet spot where it's not so low that it's underwhelming and we feel complacent, but it's also not so high that it feels impossible. There's a sweet spot where it's not just a thought in your head, but it actually switches on your energy and your emotions. It gives you an activation energy. Once you've found that sweet spot and you've got your target locked, what we do next is we reverse engineer that into specific trackable KPIs for your business. So I'm going to use a popular goal that I hear with a lot of the founders I coach, which is 1.2 million in annual revenue. That then breaks down to $100,000 a month, which breaks down to $3,333 a day. I'm going to round that up to $3,500 for simplicity. So 1.2 million a year, 100K a month, $3,500 a day. What we need to do next is know exactly how many sales we need to make per day and per month and per year, as well as how many leads do we need to generate in order to make those sales, and then how much marketing do we need to put behind those leads and sales in order to hit our target. So let's assume, for the sake of the example, simple math, that our product is $3,500 or our offer is $3,500. That means we need to make 1 sale a day and 30 sales a month. Well, given whatever your conversion rate is, let's say it's 1%, how many leads do you need to generate to make that many sales? Well, at 1%, you need 100 leads a day. Then multiply that per month, per year. How much ad spend or how much content do you need to create in order to generate 100 leads a day? Now you have specific trackable KPIs. And if you want to take this a step further, I've created a resource called the Scoreboard. I actually put this together 13 years ago in my first business, and I've used it nearly every day since. It's a full system for tracking all of the key metrics of your business and even your finances as well. It's incredibly powerful. There's a video that walks you through the whole process as well. That's at a link in the description too. So check that out if you'd like. The point is, whatever your target is, you don't want to just set that target kind of blindly and let it sit there. We need to reverse engineer it so you know it inside and out, and you can actually track how close or how far away are you from it on a daily basis. The other piece that's really important to note here before we move on to actions is about personal goals. So I'm not just assuming that the only thing you're going to do all year is sit in your chair in front of your computer and work. That's not the right strategy for most people. But with personal goals, when you introduce all of these other factors, what I see most often is that most people are setting way too many personal goals, or they're setting too many that conflict with their business goals. And so their personal goals start competing for their time and energy and attention with their business goals. Now, as an example, if a founder said, I want to hit 1 million or 1.2 million in revenue, I also want to put on 20 pounds of muscle this year. I want to learn a new language and I want to travel the world. What's going to happen? Well, if he's traveling the world, he's going to be hopping from country to country. He's going to screw up his workflow and not have nearly as much time and energy to focus on his business. His diet and training is also going to fall slack. So traveling the world immediately competes with the revenue and fitness goal he set. If he wants to put on 20 pounds of muscle, he's going to feel sluggish all day long. He's going to be eating and training and like pulling energy away and time away from the work that he needs to do to produce that 1.2 million in revenue. So these goals start conflicting and competing with each other. That's not what we want. Whatever personal goals you have for yourself, my advice is to not set too many, like keep it as minimum as possible and make sure that they serve the primary goal rather than pulling away from it. So for me, for example, I have a fitness goal for the year. I also have a revenue goal for the year. The revenue goal is more important to me than the fitness goal. So I set my fitness goal to gain 5 pounds of muscle this year, just 5. I can do that doing relatively short workouts, not stuffing myself with food every day. It's pretty comfortable. And in that way, those workouts are going to actually add to my energy that I need to put towards the work. So it actually serves the goal. I have a 3-month trip planned in Q2. What I'm not doing is hopping from country to country. I'm laying down a base and I'm going somewhere where there's a big entrepreneurial community. So I can easily work effectively while I'm away. Again, it serves the goal rather than competing with it, you see? So if you're setting personal goals in addition to your big target, make sure that you're not setting too many or you're not setting too many that conflict with that business goal. Next, we need to define the actions you're going to take. And these are the tangible steps required to hit that big target. So this is essentially your broad to-do list for the year. This could mean building your product, building your funnel, writing an email sequence, creating a VSL, crafting your ad campaigns, writing a sales script. There's all kinds of things that you need to do in order to hit that target. However, my advice is to limit this to as few as possible. What are the key actions that if you did them would inevitably lead you to hitting your target? Remove everything else. So in my own business, I only have 4 main actions that I need to take. Weekly YouTube content, building out my coaching funnel, integrating a paid traffic layer, and then coaching my clients. That's it. Okay. So what are the few critical action items that will lead you to hitting your target? Once you have those, what we need to do next is schedule them monthly. And the general rule I like to use is 1 key action per month max. So for me, January is dedicated to building out the coaching funnel. In February, I'm crafting a flagship lead magnet that will be integrated into that funnel. In March, I'm writing the email welcome sequence that'll go behind that lead magnet. In April, May, and June, I'm focused entirely on the paid traffic layer, and so on and so forth. So you can see I have one key action I'm focused on. Of course, I'm doing weekly YouTube content. I'm coaching my clients throughout that whole time because those are consistent actions. So the advice here is to give yourself space, err on the side of under scheduling, so that the overwhelm you would feel otherwise, that sort of feeling of being compressed and needing to do so many things at once, that doesn't cannibalize your working energy. That can cripple founders. I've seen that so many times. So again, err on the side of giving yourself space. All of these things take way longer than you think. The other thing to keep in mind here is that this doesn't need to be perfect, but it does need to be thorough. There's an old saying in the military, no plan survives contact with the enemy. As soon as you start to execute, things will change. That's to be expected. But this initial strategy gives you a foundation to adjust from. In the same way that a plane is off course like 80-90% of the time, it course corrects its way to the target, but its target is set and it's directionally accurate the whole way. That's the purpose of this strategy. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be thorough and well thought through. So again, what are the few critical actions that if you did them and nothing else would inevitably lead you to hitting your target? Set those and then schedule them month by month. And once you have those in place, what we want to do is turn them into systems. So where actions were one-time items that you kind of check off a to-do list, systems are repeated habits that when you execute them consistently will lead you to inevitably hitting each one of your action items. So for example, in my business, one of the action items is weekly YouTube content. What I do then is turn that into a system that says, for the first 2 hours of every workday, I do nothing but focus on weekly YouTube content. See, it goes from an action item to a habit. For the building out coaching funnel, lead magnet, paid traffic pieces, all of those other action items, I turn that into a system that says, for the second work block, the second 2 hours of each workday, I focus on nothing but those building action items. For the final 2 hours of the workday, I focus on nothing but coaching delivery. So one-on-one coaching calls, going back and forth with clients, etc. In this way, I know that if I just execute on those 3 systems, I know inevitably I'm going to knock each one of those items off the actions list, which will inevitably lead to me hitting my target. So what are the systems and habits that when done consistently will lead you to accomplishing each one of those action items and essentially make that inevitable? Once you have those in place, it should be very, very simple. You want to schedule them into a clean daily workflow. So for me, I know that every day I wake up, take a cold shower, meditate, and then get straight into the first work block of each day, which of course is focused on YouTube content. I then go for a walk. Then I come back. My second work block of the day is focused on building, so product funnels, lead magnets, etc., paid traffic. When I'm done, I work out, I eat lunch, I take a nap, I come back. Third work block of the day is focused on client delivery. Then I meditate once again, dinner, chill, hang out, sleep. That's my workflow. That is a system that, again, when I execute on that consistently, will inevitably lead me to knocking those action items off the list, which will inevitably lead me to hitting my targets. If you want a little bit more detail on how to craft a specific clean daily workflow for yourself, there's a video on this channel. At the time of recording this, it's called How I Built a 7-Figure Business Working 4.5 hours a Day. That will go through my entire 3-block system. I may have changed the title by now. I don't know. Link will be in the description either way. Check that out next if you'd like. But the point is, the deeper point here is that your systems, again, when executed consistently, inevitably lead you to hitting each of your action items, which inevitably leads you to hitting your target. I hope you see how each piece leads into the next. However, there's one more step that I rarely see founders do that might be the most important part of this entire process, at least for some, and that is constraints. Constraints are what you're not going to do. That is a magic question, because founders at the 6 and early 7-figure level, most of them are constantly distracted and in this state of chaos, of chasing new opportunities, of doing way too many things, of leaking their energy and attention all over the place. And to get to a stable low to mid or even 8-figure level, what it requires most often is not doing more, but doing fewer things with more focus better. That's the goal here. So the question to ask yourself here is, what activities could slow me down or stop me from hitting my targets? And you probably have a whole bunch in mind here. It could be constantly switching your offer and business model. It could be adding way too many marketing channels. It could be focusing on way too many things. It could be answering Slack and email and putting out fires before you get into your deep work. It could be taking on problem clients. It could be doom scrolling first thing in the morning. It could be drinking and smoking weed. Who knows? I was speaking with a founder that's doing over $1 million a month the other day. And he was telling me, man, I'm burnt out. Like my energy is running kind of raw. I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed and unfocused. And it turned out when we dug into it, he was popping Zins and drinking Red Bull all day. You know who you are. And as soon as he eliminated that, he just messaged me this morning. He's like, oh man, I feel incredible. I just cut those out cold turkey and I'm just firing now. And I was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be popping Zins and Red Bulls all day. So you know the things that you're doing that are slowing you down or preventing you from hitting your targets as fast as you could. List the top 5 to 10 of those constraints and then reframe them into solutions. So, for example, the problem of switching offers and business models constantly could be optimize one offer all year long. Focus everything on that and allow it to compound over time. Adding too many marketing channels could mean focusing 100% on YouTube or 100% on paid ads or 100% on Instagram, but focusing your attention on that one that's moving the needle. Doom scrolling first thing in the morning could be the solution to that could be just installing an app blocker on your phone. You know, it could be really simple. There's an old quote from Charlie Munger that goes, "It's remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent." So what are the things you're doing that are stupid, that are slowing you down and blocking you? We've all got them. I certainly have them myself. And understand that scaling to 7 or 8 figures is often more about what you don't do than what you do. So what are the constraints that are slowing you down that you're going to immediately stop doing and implement solutions to counteract them that will allow you to inevitably hit your targets and execute on your systems and actions more efficiently? So now you've got your complete task strategy laid out. There's one more bonus item that can be super helpful. It's very, very simple. And that is to identify 3 to 5 super quick, easy to do action items that you can knock out immediately or within the first 24 hours after getting this system laid out that will put your plan in motion. And again, these are simple, easy things that you can do right away. So it could be scheduling your upcoming work week and completing one really small 2-minute task on your to-do list. It could be buying a big annual calendar and marking the key dates in your year. It could be buying a course or a book on something you need to learn. It could be reaching out to a coach that you want to hire to help you. It could be deleting social media on your phone and installing that app blocker. There are quick little actions that you can take that will put some momentum, some wind at your back so that you're not executing from scratch when you sit down to work. And this idea comes from actually Ernest Hemingway, the writer. And he had this habit where he would stop his day of writing mid-sentence so that he always knew where he was going to pick back up the following day. In other words, he had momentum that would carry him instead of just sitting down and writing from a blank page. So what are the action items you can do that will have that effect for you? My recommended action item here is simply right now to complete this task strategy. Complete it. If you need more help with that, there's the AI tool at the link in the description that will walk you through each step in the process, plus again, a few extra bonus steps that are super powerful and I think you'll really like. So as we wrap up here, There's one final point I want to close with, because this is the point at which way too many founders fall apart, and they don't need to. If you find yourself losing momentum and your plan kind of falls apart after a few months of execution, this might really help. So as a bit of backstory, and this is quite funny, in September of 2009, I set a goal that I wanted to make $30,000 by 1 year later, September 2010. I didn't have a business, didn't have a dollar to my name. I was living in my dorm room in first year university. I had no idea how I was going to accomplish this thing, but I pulled that goal out of thin air, 30,000, nice round number, thought it sounded good, and set out to achieve it. And so over the next 12 months, I started learning about online business. It wasn't a big thing back then, so I had to go on like underground forums and figure it out on my own. Learn about online business, selected my business model, the market I wanted to go into. And as time went on, by June and July, I still hadn't made a penny online. Now, at this point, most founders would think like, there's no way I'm going to achieve that goal of $30,000. But in early August, I launched my first digital product. It was called Prolific Shooting at the time. It was a basketball training program. And on that launch, we did $80,000 in gross revenue in 3 days. Guess what my net take-home profit was on that launch? 30,000. So the entire goal that I'd set for the year was achieved in the final month of the year. It all happened in August of 2010, and I ended up achieving that goal. So this brings up a really important distinction we need to make here between linear and non-linear growth. So many founders get caught in this trap of thinking that achieving their annual target will be this linear process where they put some effort in and they get some progress back, and it'll just be a straight line to the goal. That's not how business works. That's how a job works, by the way. You put some time in, you get some money back. That ain't a business. In business, it's a non-linear system. So most of the effort that you put in will result in very little or very flat progress. But a few small efforts, inevitably, when you put them in, will result in explosive progress that makes all the difference. And so you see this all the time in a content creator who's producing content month after month and seeing very flat growth. And then suddenly one piece of content goes viral and their channel takes off. Or you're running ad campaigns and again, seeing kind of flat growth, not really breaking through. And then suddenly one ad gets huge asymmetric returns and your ROAS explodes. You could, what I see all the time is founders will make a change to their pricing structure and the math of their business literally overnight changes. So this happens all the time. And the trick is you never know when or how it's going to happen. What you need to do as a founder is not be expecting linear growth, but understand that most of the efforts you put in will be very flat. And then you'll land on something. And again, you never know what that thing is going to be. That changes everything and it takes off. That's the way business works. So again, this happens all the time. And the magic of this task system is that when you execute it correctly, it keeps you executing long enough for non-linear results to actually occur. So your job here is to keep executing on the plan. Keep your targets locked, keep your systems in place, keep executing your action items, and allow yourself to be surprised at how you reach the target. I hope this gave you clarity on exactly what you need to do this year. If you want any more help with it, link to the free AI tool is in the description, along with all the other resources we mentioned. Otherwise, you got everything you need. Go make it happen.